Welcome to week number 4 of Church Hurt Small Group Curriculum. Hey everybody, so glad that you're here. I hope that you're making friends. That is so key. I hope that you find yourself already opening up and finding healing and freedom. I hope, man, care is happening, that you're talking to one another, you're praying for one another, you're getting to know one another. If there's been needs happening, that you're meeting needs, you're on the lookout for needs. I hope that you're already just taking a next step in your spiritual journey. And I know right now there are friendships that are forming. They're going to last a lifetime, and this small group is going to continue to move forward, and your life's going to continue to be impacted in a great way because you've chosen to do life together with other Christ followers. Well, today I want to continue talking to you about how do you guard your heart from church hurt. The vast majority of people have never been equipped and taught, how do I guard my heart from church hurt? So I want to pick up from where we left off last week as we were looking at some biblical principles to guard our hearts from church hurt. So last week we covered the first 3, and today we're going to look at 3 more principles. And here's the 4th one, and that is, don't judge all churches by the actions of some churches. That is so key, that you and we're not people that will judge all churches because of the actions of some churches. So here's what I'm saying. There are some bad churches. We're acknowledging that. But here's a question for us. What are some things we can do to help change the perspective of people who have been hurt by the church and now think all churches are bad? Think about that. I know some of you probably know people that just say all churches are bad. What are some things we can actually do practically to help change the perspective of people who've been hurt by the church and now think all churches are bad? Hey, 2 or 3 of you, would you jump out there? Let's talk about this. A 5th principle is don't get caught up in the offenses of others. Deuteronomy 19 verse 15 says, one witness is not enough to convict anyone accused of any crime or offense they may have committed. A matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. So the Bible is just teaching us a principle, and that is not to hear one thing from one person and then to get all caught up in the gossip and the offenses of others. This happens. It's so easy to get caught up in hearing something and don't even know if it's factual or true. And then I've seen people get offended by something that's 2 or 3 people removed from them. They didn't even hear it from that person, but they heard it from another person, and now they're offended. They're wounded by it. And I love what Paul goes on to say in 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 19. He says, do not entertain an accusation against an elder unless it is brought by 2 or 3 witnesses. So here's just the principle. It's don't just hear something from one person and then get all caught up in the offenses of others. And it's just so easy to do. Here's a question for us to answer together and to talk through. And that is, what are some things you can do to protect your heart from the offenses of others? Just some practical things that you can do to protect your heart, that you don't get offended and wounded by other people's stories and what they say. Let's talk about what we can do to protect our hearts. Jump out there. Let's talk. A 3rd question. Okay, this is a doozer. This is a big one, right? How can we guard our life from gossip and hearsay so that we don't pollute our own heart? Oh, there's nothing that can contaminate the heart like gossip and hearsay and did you hear and she said, right? All that gets into our own heart. How do we guard our life from gossip and hearsay so we don't pollute our own heart? I think about Now, I've heard people say, I just don't know why people come tell me everything. Well, I know why, because you're a trash can. That's funny right there, because they're just opening their life up to it. They're not guarding their heart from gossip and hearsay. How do we do that? I think it's so important for my life, for your life, so that we don't pollute our own heart. Okay, 2 or 3 of you lead the way and give us some practical nuggets on how you guard your heart from gossip and hearsay. Okay, the last principle is this: do not give up on the church. The enemy wants all of us to get so wounded that we live wounded and we stay wounded, and then we give up on the very thing that Christ is building. Christ said, I'm building my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against the church of Jesus Christ. The writer of Hebrews says in chapter 10 and verse 24 and verse 25, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. See the day of Christ's return approaching. And a lot of people give up on the very thing that will help them receive healing. It's true. It's so true that it's people who hurt us, but it's also true that it's people that God uses to heal us and to help us. Here's a question. Why is being connected to a local church and a small group so important to our spiritual health and spiritual growth? Let's go. This is a good one. Let's talk about it. Some great dialogue on just the importance of church and small group and what it does for us. And I want you to think about your life on this last question and just a personal spiritual next step and just growth and closeness to the Lord. And the question is this: what are some things you can do to be more committed to God's church and God's people? Come on, just think about your life right now. You get ready to talk about this. What are some things you can do to be more committed to God's church and God's people? I think God wants to raise up our level of commitment to Him, His church, and His people. Let's talk about it. I can't believe it. Week number 4 of our Church Hurt Small Group series is coming to an end, but we're saving the last 2, the best 2 weeks for last. Don't you miss week 5 and week 6. And I already want you to think about, what are you guys going to do together at the end of week 6? Is there another series you want to do? Maybe one of the series I've done in the past. You can go through that together. A book study that you could just submit to your small group coach or your small group pastor or your campus pastor, just to get approved. Some curriculum that you guys could go through together. I just want to encourage you, begin to think about how you keep this group moving forward at the end of the 6 weeks. Hey, would you take prayer requests? Would you pray for each other? And I look forward to seeing you next week. Don't let anything stop you from being here next week for week 5. I'll see you then.